You know, at the fantasy endgame, it's all about looking ahead, right? Trying to do what the others wouldn't do in your league because they're just looking at the here and the now. All right. So with that said, here's some buy low candidates. Yeah, these guys are struggling, and why would you want to buy them? I'm about to tell you. First off, is one of my guys that I thought would have an amazing season. And we have seen a big, sharp decline in performance from Bryce Miller, the Seattle Mariners. In fact, really just the whole pitching staff, which was undoubtedly the best pitching staff in all the majors last year. And what have we seen? George Kirby hasn't even pitched yet because he's been hurt. Now Logan Gilbert, who was supposed to be pretty much the safest pitcher you can get, he is hurt. And then Luis Castillo is fine, but not what he used to be. Bryce Miller is the one who really has been the biggest. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to put the B word out there yet, but disappointment so far because his numbers are definitely lacking and he's had a little bit of a back issue and some soreness, but I can't say it's injury related. I don't think we're going to excuse that. So, whatever the reason is, we've seen his usually impeccable control really kind of spiral out of control. In fact, his walk rate is exactly double from last year, from a 6.4%, which is pretty good, below league average, to 12.8%. How does a guy all of a sudden walk twice as many batters? His ERA is definitely worse at 4.15, but the whip is what's killing you at 1.47. And the strikeout rate is lower too. And of course, not getting wins, he's not even going deep into games. If you're in a league that uses quality starts, forget it. Not a single quality start this entire season because he hasn't even lasted 6 innings in a single start. So there's going to be something going on. Well, it's hard to say, right? There's obviously a multitude of reasons that could impact his performance. I did find something, Brady Farkas from Sports Illustrated. He noticed that the release point for Miller was a little bit off track. He's releasing it a little bit prematurely. And although I looked myself at the StatCast and, Baseball Savant says his arm angle is exactly the same, his movement and all that is pretty similar to last year, but he's just, having kind of one of these timing issues, which usually correlate with hitters, right? Not getting their timing just right. In this case, it seems like Miller's just a little bit off. And that's why the control is off and he can't get it going. And if you don't have that consistency to put the ball where you want it early in the count, then things get away from you late in the count. Really, this is just a matter of settling down and getting back to what he was last year. But that's easier said than done, right? Can he actually do it? I'm betting on yes. And not just because I'm being stubborn here, not just because Miller was one of my favorite pitchers of all before the season, but because we know he can do this and there doesn't seem to be any reason he can't. I mean, the numbers are concerning, but again, we also have to look back and say, hey, it's only been a month, and if everything is right physically, and if he figures it out, he can get back to being a dominant starter. So hopefully this doesn't blow up in my face to say this, but I still believe in Miller, and I don't see any reason to think that all of a sudden this guy's just going to have a horrible season all season long. And again, we're trying to buy low here. So what are we going to do? Get one of these pitchers that we plucked off of waivers or maybe drafted super late if you were super lucky. And let's see if we can parlay that into a possible ace. I'm talking about a Chris Bubich, maybe a Tyler Mahle. And of course, it might take more than that to get Miller. I'm willing to go as high as like Nathan Eovaldi, who has been amazing this season, and we know Eovaldi has a track record, but he's also got a pretty lengthy injury history. Another pitcher who isn't quite ace material, but was drafted close to that, usually a high-end number 2 pitcher in your rotation, was Framber Valdez, who pitched like an ace throughout the second half of last year. I find it interesting that so far this year, of course, has been a little disappointing. Got a 4.39 ERA, 1.27 WHIP, just a 1-4 record. Clearly not what you expected from Valdez, but people are disappointed in the fact that they're dropping him. Apparently it's become a thing after one of his most recent starts. People are just, that's it, I've had enough. Like, this wasn't like a flash out of the pan from last year. This guy didn't come out of nowhere. He has several seasons of being fairly successful. Now, last year was clearly his best year, but here's what I want to point out, a couple of things. So first of all, he isn't as bad if you are in a league like some that use quality starts. Even though he has 1 win, he has 4 quality starts. So that softens the blow a little bit. Now, the strikeout numbers are not very good, 21.7%, hovering just around league average in that mark. But that's not unusual for Valdez either. He's never been a really high strikeout pitcher. In fact, his highest K mark ever was at 26.4%. That was back in 2020. And then last year, his best season, arguably, of his career was just 24%. So again, not very different. The walk rate is almost identical. In fact, a lot of the numbers are pretty much identical. He is what he has always been. He's a high ground ball pitcher. He will induce some whiffs, but not a ton. He's kind of a workhorse. He'll usually go pretty long into games and give you a good chance for a win or that QS. And this year just has been a little bit worse than usual. And honestly, the difference is all about expectations here. Last year, he kept doing exactly what he had always done. He just got on a hot streak and he was slightly better than usual. And it just so happens to start this season, he's just slightly worse. So what is he? He's somewhere in the middle. You know what? Let's look at 2023. Basically, what you got then is probably what you're going to wind up getting the rest of the way. That means an ERA in the threes, maybe the mid threes. Okay, hey, pretty good these days. And the whip will be maybe like 110 to 119, somewhere in the teens. Again, good, not amazing, but it's not going to hurt you. And he should eventually start to win some games too, especially now that the Astros have started scoring some runs. And look, this is not a guy who you should expect to be an ace. He was drafted too high this year based on how he finished last year, but that's just how it goes. So let's just reset here, put the expectations back to a reasonable standard. And if somebody's just disgusted with him, ready to give up on him, okay, take advantage, give up one of those waiver wire picks I mentioned earlier, a Bubic, a Molly, or someone else that you know isn't going to be as dependable as Valdez. All right, now let's stick in Houston. It's time to talk about Jose Altuve. Now, you may have heard that Altuve asked to be moved down to the second spot. Sure, we'll go with that. All right, but either way, not leading off anymore. Hitting second in the order, still a pretty good lineup when all things are clicking. Altuve has not responded well, and in fact, the last 2 weeks just batting 160 in that span. Another quiet night on Tuesday, and now he's got his average down in the 250s. It's not what we expect from Altuve. We also want some power and some speed. He's got a couple home runs. All right, that's fine for him, I would say. What about the speed? Because there's been talk that, with his advanced age, maybe he's losing a little bit something with the bat speed, and that's the question that we're debating right now. But also, what about the wheels? It's really odd, probably the oddest thing of all about Altuve's season, not just seeing him in the outfield, the fact that on April 6th, he stole a base, first of the season, way back in the beginning. April 7th, April 8th, he stole a base in 3 straight games, and then he hasn't stolen a single one since then. That's right, he got all his steals within that little 3 game period, and then that's it, they've dried up. He just isn't even trying to steal anymore. That's concerning because, first of all, not getting on base as frequently, but when he is, he's just not running. So this makes me panic just a little bit. But why am I putting him as a buy low instead of a panic? Well, here's the one thing that we should know about Altuve if you look at the numbers for his entire career. He has always vastly outperformed every single one of his expected statistics. If you look back to when he first became a star, everyone was like, how is he doing this? And not just because of his size. A guy like that had no business to even sniffing 30 home runs, and yet he did it multiple times, sometimes just in the 20s, and still, it was like a miracle. And his batting average should never be as high as it was, and yet he does it season after season after season. Is he going to do it this year? Well, I don't think he's going to be to that level. Obviously, it's a little bit different now, but when I stare at an ex-WOBA that is in the 6th percentile, yeah, that freaks me out a little bit. But again, then I look at, see, it's a Jose Altuve, like, it doesn't matter. So the lack of speed, that's concerning. Again, only 3 steals in those 3 games for whatever reason. And he's been caught stealing now a total of 3 times, and he's just not running as much. So I think we can lower the expectation. He maybe doesn't get to 20 this season. Okay, fine. He'll get you a few. I think he will still hit for some power as he's doing. The average has got to come up, and he will score runs at the top or the second spot of the batting order because Houston is getting better. So again, I'm kind of buying low on most Astros. If you hadn't noticed the last couple of weeks, I think it's still a smart move. And for Altuve, look, if you give up a guy like, let's say, a Jorge Polanco, who has been red hot to start the season, I still think Altuve is a better option. I've been buying low on a lot of Rays pitchers because of the ballpark factors there in the Tampa area, but I think it's time to look at their offense, which has been very inconsistent, also very odd because their best players aren't hitting and the guys you've never heard of are hitting. Now, the guy you definitely know is Junior Caminero. And lately, not doing a whole lot of hitting. As you know, I recently caught a Yankees game in New York at Yankee Stadium, and they were playing the Rays that day. Now, as far as the Tampa lineup, when you're looking forward to see a player in person, Yankees aside, say, okay, who can I see on the other side? Who's Tampa got? And the first name that came to my mind was, hey, I could see Junior Caminero. That would be exciting. So we wound up going 0 for 4 that day. Hey, that's not a problem, right? But I look at the recent trends here with Caminero overall. I'm realizing it's been a while since I really had thought about Caminero doing much of anything, and that's because he hasn't. He's got that batting average now down to 240, only one hit in his previous 4 games, and that was right before getting a rest. This guy's been out there every single day, which is a good thing. This is an asset in fantasy. The fact that he can accumulate those at bats, and that they've trusted him to be the guy, right? The Rays are known for moving guys around and inconsistent playing time, but not with Caminero. He's up and he's staying. So that's a good thing. But he finally got his second day off of the season, and maybe this was more just for a mental break. So he's back in the lineup, 1 for 3, got that average up to 242. Again, where is the power? We want some massive power from this guy, like we saw in the Dominican League, like we caught glimpses of last year. We know it's in there. So what's the reason to buy low? Is because it's in there. It just hasn't quite come out yet. I'm betting on the talent here, right? Basically, he's not hot yet. I think he will get hot once the summer warms up. Everybody's expecting big things from him. Let's not change that just because he hasn't been great in April. And I'm not saying you can get away with this, but some people haven't been playing fantasy as long, or again, they just have those blinders on. They just look at the here and the now. If you could flip Gino Suarez, guy who has a ton of home runs, but we know what Suarez is, right? Talk about getting things in bunches. If you can flip him for a Caminero somehow, absolutely do it. Now, in that very same game, I also got to see Ben Rice go 0 for 4. All right, I wasn't there to see Ben Rice, but I like Ben Rice. I still like Rice, and I still think it's interesting to see that Aaron Judge is hitting ahead of him in the lineup. I'm still maybe, I guess, old school and thinking your best hitter should be third or fourth, so there's more runners on base, but whatever. So Aaron Judge smacked a home run. Ben Rice flew out, grounded out, didn't do much. Okay, so Ben Rice lately hasn't done much. After enjoying a 2-homer game on April 29th against Baltimore, he doesn't have a home run this past week. All right, fine, but only 3 base hits. Now, on Tuesday night, he did get a pair of doubles and some RBIs to go with it, so that averages a 264. When the homers are there, people don't pay as close of attention. And again, it's not like the average is really standing out here in the 260s. Right, so a lot of people will chalk this up to the Yankees were hot to start the season, the torpedo bats, whatever. And, Rice isn't even owned everywhere. He's only 2/3 rostered across Yahoo leagues, and even less is always in ESPN. But Rice has a lot going for him. First of all, hitting in the Yankees lineup, right, and hitting third. You can't really get much of a better prime spot than that, right? The RBIs will definitely be there, and I think the batting average will improve. He's hit home runs, just the RBIs haven't matched yet. It's going to continue to improve. One thing I noticed that Brendan Tuma put out there in his weekly Substack. So there's 7 players he noticed have 100 plate appearances so far in the season with a 13% or better barrel rate, 400 xWOBA or better. And those players are Aaron Judge, Pete Alonso, Fernando Tatis Jr., O'Neal Cruz, Cal Raleigh, how about that? Kyle Stowers of the Marlins, and Ben Rice. So Ben Rice has been posting an xWOBA in the top 25 out of all major league hitters, qualified hitters, so far this season. And I still think there's more to come. So again, this guy's being super undervalued. And in most competitive leagues, he is already taken. I will gladly swap out Torque. That's right, Spencer Torkelson. I'm not saying I don't believe in the breakout. He's still going to hit home runs. I think he'll be fine. But give me Rice. I'm always going to bet on the guy with a better plate discipline, and he's definitely in the better lineup. That's this week's buy low. Guys, I'm going to take a chance on the rest of the season if the price is right. I also have already talked about some players that I'm not completely sold on. Some I think you should keep. Some I think you can move on from. That's this week's panic video, and it's right here.